There's a belief that if a house remains uninhabited for a long time, something sinister begins to reside there. Nowadays, such beliefs are often dismissed. I wouldn't have believed it either if I hadn't rented the small shed next to the abandoned house, given its proximity to my office. I liked the place because it was in a sparsely populated area. Within a few days of moving in, I had everything set up. I lived alone, free from disturbances. The first week passed uneventfully. Then, one night, as usual, I returned from the office, finished my chores, and went to sleep after shutting all the doors and windows. Suddenly, I woke up to the sound of someone tapping on the window. It was 12:26 a.m. The only window in the room was adjacent to my bed, opposite the door. Who could be calling from behind the house? As far as I knew, there was nothing but the abandoned house behind the window. Annoyed, I stared at the window. The tapping sound turned into loud banging, causing the window to rattle. It seemed someone desperately needed me to open the window. Startled by the sudden noise, I felt my heart pound. Whoever it was, they were growing impatient as the window continued to shake. Before opening it, I raised my voice and asked, "Who is it?" The rattling stopped immediately. A few moments passed in silence. I asked again, "What do you want?" Just as I was debating whether to open the window, it started shaking violently again. Nobody would knock so urgently at this hour unless it was an emergency. From my bed, I slowly opened the middle part of the 3-pane window and peered outside. But no one was there. Strange. What did this mean? I grabbed the torch from beside my pillow and shone it outside. No one. I closed the window and lay back down. Barely 10 minutes later, the tapping resumed, followed by the rattling. This time, I was furious. I opened the window and looked out, only to find the same empty scene. There was no one. Annoyed and angry, I grabbed the torch, opened the door, and stepped outside. The mild moonlight and the courtyard bulb illuminated everything. Opposite my shed was the landlord's house. All their lights were off, and the surroundings were silent. The other houses in the area were also dark. Seeing a stick lying in front of me, I picked it up and went behind my shed. I searched with the torch, but found no one. As I was about to return inside, I noticed a light in the room attached to the veranda of the abandoned house. I was surprised because, as far as I knew, the house had been empty for a long time. Moreover, I had looked at the house several times in the past hour, but hadn't noticed the light. From my window, I could see the entire house, yet I hadn't seen any light before. It seemed someone had recently moved in. When I shone the torch at the gate, I was shocked. The large brass lock was still there, securing the gate from the outside. There was no way anyone could enter the room without unlocking the gate. I grew suspicious. Cautiously, I approached the house. The room with the light had a wooden window facing outside. I knocked on it and asked, "Who's inside?" I was startled by the sound of movement inside. After a moment, the window creaked open. A girl looked at me with curious eyes. Her gaze captivated me. In a trembling voice, I said, "I didn't know anyone lived here. I saw the light and came to check." The girl smiled and said, "We arrived just tonight, a little while ago." "But the gate is locked from the outside," I said. "Is it?" she asked. I turned and shone the torch on the gate, astonished to see that the lock was gone and the gate was slightly ajar. The girl continued to smile and said, "I didn't see you here before. Are you a new neighbor? I moved into that shed about a week ago. Sorry for disturbing you. What time is it?" I asked awkwardly. "You heard someone knocking on your window, right?" she said. I was taken aback. "How do you know?" I heard the same rattling sound and looked out my window. I saw a strange, shadowy figure near your window and got scared. Then you came. A shiver of fear ran through me. The girl said, "Since you're here, could you do me a favor? Please come inside." She shut the window with a click, and turned on the veranda light. The gate was made of solid metal and grilled, allowing the veranda light to spill outside. I stood there for a moment, bewildered, then entered. The so-called abandoned house was a simple 2-story structure. The bedrooms were adjacent, with a bathroom on the right and a small room on the left. The girl had called me from the room facing the veranda. When I peeked into the veranda room, the girl wasn't there. Odd. Then I heard her sweet voice from the right bedroom. "Please come in." Reluctantly, I opened the door and stepped inside. The room was dark. Torchlight filled the room, revealing the girl standing a few steps away. She approached, handed me a bulb, and said, "Please help me install this. It's been such a hassle without it. There's no torch in the whole house." She looked angelic in her sari, her presence making my heart race. I climbed onto the chair and tried to fit the bulb into the high socket, struggling a bit. Out of curiosity, I asked, "Are you here alone?" A deep, masculine voice filled the room, chilling me to the core. "We never go anywhere alone. You shouldn't have entered a stranger's house alone either." The bulb and torch slipped from my hands. I looked down in terror, the torch's beam extinguishing as it hit the floor, plunging the room into darkness. The girl's eyes glowed like flames where she had stood. In that eerie light, her face was not human. It had no nose or mouth, just 2 fiery eyes in the middle of a featureless face. Below the throat, a slit appeared, seeming like a mouth. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I fell from the chair, narrowly missing, hitting my head on the floor. I turned to look at the girl. Her glowing eyes revealed her monstrous form, her hairy body crawling with strange, white worm-like creatures. She moved toward me, and I trembled with fear. My legs were too twisted to stand, and there was no escape. What was this thing? A hallucination? Using all my strength, I screamed. The loud sound echoed through the room, surprising even myself. I found the stick I had brought and struck the creature's chest. It wasn't a ghost. It let out a faint cry and retreated. I screamed again, gathering enough courage to drag myself to the veranda. The veranda light was off. I heard people approaching, their torches illuminating my surroundings. My landlord and others stood at the gate, shocked. They couldn't enter because the gate was locked from the outside. They shouted, asking how I had entered without unlocking it. Seeing me in such a state, they quickly broke the lock and rescued me. I had no strength to respond. I closed my eyes, paralyzed by the fear of death. It took almost a month for my legs to heal. The day after the incident, I left that place in terror. The memory of that horrific night haunted me, its ghastly face and body lingering in my dreams. Many nights, it woke me up with nightmares. Since then, I've never been able to overcome my fear of the dark. I still sleep with the lights on. Years later, I learned that the heirs of that house had returned and demolished the abandoned building, replacing it with a multi-story building. Many neighbors reported hearing knocks and rattles at their windows at midnight and seeing lights in the abandoned house. Some even saw a beautiful girl's silhouette through an open window. Knowing my story, they stayed cautious and avoided danger. No one else saw what I saw that night, and I hope no one ever does. I don't want anyone to experience the terror of a knock from an unknown world at their window in the dead of night.